"Confirmed," said the same voice. "Zero movement." Zetter heard several of the officers let out deep sighs. He reached for a microphone and gave a string of orders for his people to expand the ground search using the modified Desert Patrol vehicles. Lines of these dune buggy-like two-man vehicles vanished into the surrounding woods and neighborhoods, going where the heavier and clumsier Humvees couldn't. Then Zetter sat back and let out his own sigh. He got to his feet and turned to the gathered officers, all of whom fell silent. "This is a tragic and terrible day in American history," he said. "We've all been asked to make hard decisions and to carry them out with professionalism and efficiency." The officers nodded. "You're all aware of the political delicacy of what has happened today." More nods, but now they were careful. There were 3 huge elephants in the room with them, and nobody wanted to talk about any of them, except the infection. That was safe ground because it was why they were there. The President and the Governor of Pennsylvania had mobilized the Guard to stop the spread of an old Cold War bioweapon that had been released accidentally by a former Soviet scientist. That was, by strict military parlance, a clusterfuck. And the pathogen's virulence was such that it spread throughout the town, infecting virtually everyone, killing them. And then, in a twist of mad science that even Zetter found hard to accept, it brought the dead back as aggressive disease vectors. The risen dead, driven by the genetically engineered parasites that made up the substance of the pathogen, attacked like sharks, mindless, endlessly hungry, and vicious. That resulted in the second elephant in the room, the one each of them knew would haunt their lives and taint the military here on the ground and the administration in Washington. Acting under orders to sterilize the town in order to stop the spread of the infection, Zetter's command predecessor, Lieutenant Colonel Macmillan Dietrich, had ordered the town's emergency shelter, the Stebbins Little School, to be destroyed. It was filled with people, many of whom were infected. Every officer understood the necessity for that kill order. Most of them even agreed with it. However, a reporter, Billy Trout, from Regional Satellite News, was inside the school. Inside, but connected to the outside world via a live news feed. As the gunships opened up on the building, Trout made an impassioned plea to the world to save the uninfected children. The plea hit every single news service. The media and public outcry was immediate and massive. Massive. And that directly led to the ugliest part of this, at least for the officers in that command center. The reporter's plea was broadcast to the troops outside the building via the school's public address system. The result? One by one, the soldiers at the fence stood up and refused to follow orders. They would not kill the children. It was mutiny, and one officer, a young lieutenant, tried to nip it in the bud, but he was overwhelmed and eventually, outranked as a more senior officer, Captain Rice, went to stand with the mutineers. The President had immediately ordered General Zetter to relieve Dietrich of his post and assume overall command of the situation. Every officer there knew that it was unfair to put the blame on Dietrich, just as it was unfair that the public and the media would demonize them for their actions in Stebbins County. Actions that, had they not been taken, would have opened the door to a massive and perhaps unstoppable pandemic. That was the biggest elephant in the room, and nobody there dared talk about it. Now another chapter had been completed. Zetter had contacted the reporter and 2 police officers inside the school and made them a deal. If they sent out every infected person, then the school would be spared.